Hello everyone and welcome to the second workshop of Futurepreneurs 2021. My name is Yulia, I'm the coordinator of Futurepreneurs, and if this is your first time watching our events, welcome. And you should know that Futurepreneurs is a sustainability pre-acceleration program organized by Sunrise
Hello
Valley
everyone
Science
and welcome to the second
Technology
workshop of Futurepreneurs.
So, while we focus on the teams participating in our program, all of our events are live streamed and available for the wider public who's interested in the topic of the workshop. So now, without any further ado, I would like to introduce the lecturer of this workshop. So Justinas Katkus is an IT and robotic professional with an extensive experience in product development and R&D. He is a co-founder of Factobotics and founding board member of Lithuanian Robotics Association. And today he will share his knowledge and experience and insights about building MVPs, testing the products, and more. So all Futurepreneurs participants who are joining us in Zoom can use the chat to ask Justinas questions, and he will try to answer them all on the go. So Justinas, the virtual stage is yours.
Okay, thank you, Julia. So good late afternoon, everybody. I hope everybody hears me well. I can see some of you have been driving in the car, and some of you have been sitting in some strange, almost wardrobe places. So I hope you're all connected and ready to go through this small workshop. We will divide it in a few sections. So the idea is that you should feel free to interrupt me anytime. The idea is for you to ask questions so that you actually get your things out of me and then can push your ideas further. So for this hour, I'm here especially for you. So feel free to do that. If you're a little bit more shy, then feel free to write these questions to the chat window, and Julia will help in reminding me that there are some questions there. So as for my background, Julia quickly mentioned, so generally I'm a computer scientist, which by accident or by no accident ended up in robotics some good 7 years ago. And now we're having a lot of fun there. Mostly we work with a lot of industrial applications. It so happened that I also now have founded and I'm running a small laser company. So my experience is quite broad. I have seen both businesses in completely virtual space like mobile games. I've both built data analytics software and many more things. So I hope that my understanding and knowledge will be useful for you. So without any further ado, let's give it a start. Okay. Now this works. So as I said today, the workshop is, or the lecture here is divided into three main sections. The first one is product brief. Then we will talk a little bit about how to validate your idea, and the last thing is MVP. So in order you can actually get to MVP, when I started looking a little bit at your lecture material, I understood that you have to have a little bit broader understanding of what you are going to do and how you're going to do that. Because MVP, in my understanding, is a quite late stage and you really want to be very sure what you want to do in order you can build it. And before you actually start throwing your time in or somebody's money into buying some components or spending countless hours on programming something or building something, there's really a lot of things you can do which helps you sort of narrow down. And as we will see, MVP is all about figuring things before you build as much as you can, and then trying to keep this narrow, very focused, in a way, laser view on something. So let's start from the first part, which is, in my understanding, a crucial as I understood you in the last lecture, what you have been introduced in a way to generate different types of business ideas. And probably you have, by this time yourselves, developed at least a few of those. And let's help you get those going. So in my understanding, product brief is a very clear small sheet. So it can be maximum 2 pages long. and we will go into a little bit more detailed view what it should contain. In my understanding, it has to have these basic sort of points in it, or basic areas that it covers, in order you can move further. And you should not be scared, because at this early stage you are never going to have anything which is sure or complete. That's why the product brief in the first stage, where you are right now, should be something that is based completely on your vision, on your gut feeling, on wherever it came from. But it compiled in one place, it should give you quite clear understanding, or sort of guidelines for yourself, where you're heading, so that in order in the next stage you would be able to validate these. And after you have validated these and sort of iterated a bit, then you can go into building something. So the scope of this first part is for you to really understand how to build this product brief. And as I said, it's crucial for the next steps. So the first section is something that you all are familiar, something that I would call product features and benefits. So this small intro section should have in its points whatever features you think your initial vision of the product or service should contain. Whatever it comes from, just write these features down. If you really need good examples of features, if you just Google a little bit product feature examples, you will have tons of fantastic examples in the web. And be sure at this stage to really sort of map out and clearly define what is a feature and what is a customer benefit. And as you can see here, this example illustrates very well that a product feature is that the handle of an umbrella is really made out of a really nice solid wood, which feels fantastic in your hand, but actually it still has the same benefit of having a good grip and covering you from the rain or from the UV coming from the sun. So once you build these, and for our example to be, let's say for our story to be a little bit more consistent, I was thinking that to keep your sort of mind going on one line, let's all imagine that we are sort of thinking about building an autonomous or robotic vacuum cleaner, and we're still in the world where it doesn't exist. Now, probably if you will go on Google, you will get a top 20 best robotic vacuum cleaners list, but back in the early 2000s, there were practically none. So let's imagine that here you will think of building one, or try to think that there is a market for such a thing. So what kind of features and benefits do you think it should have? So first of all, for example, I think that it would be nice that it, of course, vacuums automatically. Yes, and then if it vacuums automatically, the feature should be that it charges automatically. And maybe there is also something that you would like to do, like maybe you would like to enable it from your mobile phone, or that it would be somehow scheduled, right? And of course, the benefits is that, it clearly cleans your floors, and then probably the benefits is that it can do in a regular basis, maintaining more cleanliness. And of course, it probably also benefits you from saving time on yourself when you don't have to clean the floors, or somebody doesn't have to clean. So these are the examples when you think about this product vision that you really need to list down at this stage. Something, what I think also is very important is what is called dependency analysis. It's not as scary as it sounds, and try to think what needs to be in place in order your product could be used. So here is a small example I wrote that, for example, in order something like an Airbnb would be able, or you would be able to use something like an Airbnb, you would need to have a mobile phone, and then probably have a mobile internet and be able to use it on the go. So with our robot vacuum cleaner example, you would probably need to have suitable apartment floors, so probably not many separate floors. So probably you would need to have electricity and a few other things. So when you think about your product idea, try to do these basic dependency analysis in order thinking what there should really be in place. And here what you should be looking for, because if you really sort of base your idea or your product on something that is not necessarily there at the moment, or is going to be out there in the moment, some certain technology that you need to be in place, or some certain behavior that you need to have in place, then this is really good for you to understand at this stage, because later it might be giving you both opportunities and both threats for your ideas, because some of these things that you base on might not happen, or might happen in a little bit different way. So having these dependencies and understanding them, I think, is crucial in this early stage. It gives you a little bit more realistic touch, because you always sort of perform and act in a very controlled world and in a very clear environment. The next step is something that is called customer hypothesis, or figuring out what kind of market are you entering. Is it going to be a business to business market, or you're going to go straight for the consumer? If you're going for any of these, there is a sort of classical tree of types of users, and you really need to be sure who is who in your sort of user map or user chart. If you look at the home environment, for example, on our robotic vacuum cleaner, probably the user is going to be the owner of the apartment or you yourself. But if you live in a family, then probably you might be influenced much more by your wife to actually buy this, because she's really probably taking care of your apartment, or maybe you have your mother taking care of your apartment, so she's going to probably even recommend it for you, but you're going to be, for example, the user of it. The same thing goes with the decision maker. So somebody in the chain who is really responsible for making the decision whether this will be bought or not. Typically in the organizations, this is the top management, and your sort of chart should always try to lead you in how you get everybody in the network to work to this person, to who is this decision maker, that he makes this decision to actually buy your service or product. This is really also important, because if you sort of are able to chart out a small diagram, I mean, even if you put it in rectangles and show, in your household for the product, who is who and who might be recommending and how this tree goes, it will really sort of help you understand much better in what kind of environment, once again, you're going to be placing your product. But the next thing is also how you're able to influence users and actually buying it, which is also crucial, because in this chain you have to understand who is the beneficiary and who really needs to be influenced in order that this purchase is made. The next thing which is crucial is the customer problems. So typically what you want to have here is a very clear list of problems that your customer is having. And I would be very happy to see here that you have not only one problem. If you can boil it down to one problem and it's boldly sure, it's good. But here you might be having a little bit longer list of these problems. This will also be crucial both now and both a little bit later for validating. Another thing that is also very important on putting a little bit extra in understanding the environment you're going to work in is try to write down a picture of what a day in your customer life looks like. So if we're still talking about the robotic vacuum cleaner, you really want to understand how a person who's going to use it lives. When does he wake up? What kind of work he does? Does he have children at home? If he wakes up the first one to work a little bit, to have a few quiet hours before the family gets up, then probably you will already see that, this is not the hours you want the robot to work. But later on, when everybody leaves the apartment and the apartment is free for 3-4 hours, maybe this is the time. But it also gives you a sort of understanding where in the customer's day the product fits and where would he be using it. In other examples, I mean, if it would be an Airbnb example, you would probably be sitting at a certain hour when you're together at home in the evening and booking your bookings in the evening with your wife or your girlfriend or whomever. So try to write down a comprehensive picture of your customer's day. This is not hard to get. If you cannot get it in some way at this stage, try to imagine it. But having a first understanding of it will give you a lot of important details and questions later on. The next point is something that is called return on investment justification. This is not as hard as it sounds, because everybody needs to be justifying their purchases. If I'm buying a new car, I really want to be sure what I'm getting out of that. Is it an extra comfort? Is it going to be more cheaper to upkeep? I mean, is this a luxury car so that I suddenly get, a lot of status out of it? Is it, if I'm buying a new coat, will I feel fantastic because I have it and nobody else has it? So you need to write down these justifications. Why do you think the customer will justify this purchase? Is it going to save his time? Is it going to save his money? Maybe in the vacuum cleaner example, probably you're going to save on your time where you don't need to clean the apartment yourself. Even if you had a housekeeper, then probably you also save that, and in many other ways. So you have to try to write this down. This is a lot of about the psychology of the product. In the organizations, you will see this working a little different, especially if you're selling in business to business. But these justifications will even be easier because companies will most probably be saving resources on time, resources on money lost, or on something else. So this is also very important. The next step, and only here we get to the point, what is called something that is a minimum feature set. Think about it in a way that this is the smallest possible feature set that the customer will pay for. So sort of the least complicated problems that you can solve relatively easy, that can get you into customers sort of life already. And this is where it will be the first point where you will start really thinking about this MVP that the lecture is about. You have to really dig into this and try to think about the points before, but try to write down this minimum feature set. At this point, it can be quite big, but then you sort of need to already start figuring how it can be narrowed down. And what do you think is really the minimum here? And of course, this is something that you will use for your early customers to talk and to validate in the next stage. So you have to have this in place. Also, you have to understand what kind of market you will be entering. There's typically three kinds of market that you can think about. And the first one is, of course, if you're creating a new market. So it means there's simply no product like that. If we talk about the vacuum cleaners, once again, the philosophical question here will be, if you're making a robotic vacuum cleaner, does it really create a new market? Or is it just resegmenting an existing market because everybody else is using an old school vacuum cleaner, but you are entering a market and you're adding yourself a unique position? So it means you're sort of taking parts of the other market and sort of reserving it for you. Another thing is entering an existing market where you will be competing with many other lookalike products, but you will be competing on features like, my product is a little bit faster, my product is a little bit cheaper, my product is a little bit this or a little bit that. At this stage, you cannot be still sure, but later you have to be quite crucially made, up your mind at that point, because that will change a lot on how you spend your money, on how you position yourself, and do many other things. Also, at this stage, you have to try and think if there is certain situations which you would like to not get yourself into, like the situations where you're trying to enter a market where there is a total monopoly. Monopoly means that there is a player which owns 80% or more of the market. That means you will always be pressed down or completely smashed quite fast. So what you're looking in is either for new markets or fragmented markets where you have a lot of players, but you can really squeeze yourself in different ways. Another thing to think about at this stage, not to go very deep, but just to broadly, on a high level, understand how will you be selling this product? Is it going to be, online sales, driven through referral networks? You're going to buy ads in Facebook? Is it going to be something you want to put on the shelves of retail stores, or is it going to be something you have to sell through wholesale distribution? So we really need to think about this, because that will affect a lot on your pricing strategies later, and of course some other things. Once you do this, you should really have something that I said as a product brief, and it should not be big, a few pages, but for you this is something which you print out, stick on the wall, and congratulations, now you have something that we call your first product brief, or your sort of product vision document. Once you have that, and as I said in the beginning, it's completely okay to have it just on your gut feeling, on your visions, on talking with your partners, and just coming up with things. But now you need to sort of go out and get out of the building and start validating it, because you really want to be sure that you're building something that is going to be used and needed in the market. So in the validation phase, I would try to point out a few crucial points here that at least I would like to know before I really start throwing my time and money into building something. So first of all, what you need to build is you need to build something that is called a first list of customer contacts. These are not necessarily going to be your users, but you need to start making contacts to different people that you think that have this problem or is somehow related to this problem, or you think that could be helping you in pointing to people that have this problem. But you need to build up a list of contacts that you simply need to reach out. At this stage, what you need to do is you need to be very open. And if you have a team and you're not the only ones on the team, you really need to get the people who are able to talk to people out. This is the stage where you're getting out of the building. If the first part of building the product brief was very much as getting coffee or beers and sitting with your friends in the kitchen and just brainstorming, this is the stage where you're getting out of the building. If you don't do this stage, you're still in your dream world and you still have nothing validated. So here you build a list and you're looking for people who would be your sort of called innovators. So it's the people who would be having this, aha, I have this problem and I want to talk more with you. So this is the sort of people you want to find out. In my sort of feeling, you have to make at least 50 calls and get at least 10 meetings to validate why, sort of these people will use your product. In another sense, I would say that I would actually, from my experience, I would say you would need to make at least 100 or 150 calls and have at least 50 meetings, because 10 might not be enough and you still might be having answers which are a little bit floating around. So you really need, while talking to these people, try to close these interviews by simply saying, could you point me to somebody that would give me, that would be interested in something like this? Or could you recommend me that somebody that I need to talk to, or maybe somebody who you think is the leader in this industry, or somebody who would point me in the right direction? So try to build a comprehensive list of people and be completely okay with that people will turn you down. Write introductory emails, call on the phone, try to get out and talk, and then be open about it. Try to also give something to people in return, because not all the people will be willing to give you their time, especially here, because you will be wanting at least 20 minutes or half an hour of their time, and this might be hard. So for some people, try to think what you can give in return. If you already work in this area, try to think of, maybe you already have an understanding what is, for example, state of the art things in the market. So try to give them some knowledge or some insights in return. This is what I typically do. I try to tell people a little bit of what is happening in the market, what else we have seen, so that they also get a feeling of what is happening that they have missed or they didn't have time to read or understand. So this is a sort of, as much as you give out, you will be getting in return. There will be, as I said, some people who will be very willing, some people who will not. Don't sort of feel bad about it. You need to get out and try as much as you can. The next thing you build is this is a crucial step, actually, because this is where you sort of, once you build this list of people and sort of start talking with them, the next stage you need to do is you need to build something that is called a customer problem presentation. And it's a very simple one, but which is sort of made out of 3 slides. The first one is where you write down the list of the problems that you got out of these interviews. Remember that you're using your product brief to talk about with people and sort of hear what kind of problems they have and tell about your product idea. But also here you're building, you're sort of validating a little bit whether your problem, list of problems is something that they think about also. And here you have also probably collected some new problems. So here at this stage, what you need to be doing and showing to these people that you meet further on in this presentation, you need to have a clear list of problems and show it to them. And here you will also get them to nod and say, yeah, I have this problem, and yeah, I have this problem, maybe not this one. And here you will also already start refining this list of problems. The next slide you show them is how this problem is, currently or in this day solved. And here you will get sort of, this has to go like a list. If you have a problem number one, then on the next slide it has to be a solution to the number one problem. This is also what you want to show your customers that you have analyzed and you see. And probably there might not be a solution which is sort of spot on, and they sort of maybe are doing a few things instead of that, but still it's a solution, and you need to understand it quite well, how they solve it today. Because if it's an important problem for them, they will be somehow trying to get around it or get through it in their lives. Once you're finished with the second stage, this is where you come in, and this is where you show that, hey, to the first problem and to the current today's solution, we have our solution, and this is, blah blah, this is good in this way, in that way. And then this is where you really start showing your solution, and this is where you want to see people saying, yeah, this would be interesting, or yeah, this is something, yeah, this is for me, or no, this is really not for me. So you need to go through this and really iterate, so that you sort of get your problem validated, or a list of problems validated. Also, in the next phase, or you can combine it with the phase before, with the problem presentation, you need to show them the process of or where this problem is tangled in. You need to show the process before and after. This is, for example, something that helps a lot in when we do robotics, when we show the world before you had robots in certain processes, and when you add robots. This helps a lot on doing software. This helps a lot on many things. So try to imagine how the process looks today and how your product would change. From data collection to customer satisfaction, you can have different types of diagrams. Whichever way you can understand it, it's also a very nice and visual way of sort of showing it to your users, that you really understand how your life or the customer's life will be improved. So try to diagram this as much as you can. Once again, we get back to the minimum feature set. Here, you already have a single paragraph feature list. And here for you is, here the idea for you is to sort of get your customers to confirm or to agree on the small list of features. Here, what you don't want to do is you don't want to be sort of adding a new feature for every new customer, because this is also a very typical problem, that you have this, the customer says, yeah, but if you would add this, I would use it. The others say, yeah, but if you would add that one, I would use it. And then suddenly, instead of your sort of having 5 features, you suddenly have 20 features, because there's so many different needs from different people. This is not what you need to do. You need to take this feature set and continue iterating by looking for users until you find a substantial list of users that would really be willing to use your feature list. If you completely fail in that one, this is, and only at that point, this is where you start adding new features, or going back to your kitchen with friends or whatever, and start thinking about, maybe you need to change something, maybe you need to add features. And this is the hardest point to do, because what you will want to do in these early days, you will want to please customers, because you think, if I can get this customer and this one, maybe we just add a few of these features, we will really be closer to the market. This is a trick. No, you will not. This will just, help you on losing your direction. So you really need to be very focused here and very sure that this is what you want to validate. A minimum feature set for the first release, based on the visionary customer. So the next thing here, the next thing here is, you need to be looping, as I said. Once you're going through this validation process, you need to continue looping. Once you go through that and you get new inputs, go back to the beginning. Go back to the beginning. And you really need to iterate this as much as so that you really feel confident. And if you really have gone through these validation steps and you really see that things are not working out, at that point, it's completely okay to go back to your product brief and relook it and rethink it, and maybe rewrite some parts of it, so that you really can go back again and talk to these customers. At this point, you're not selling. At this point, you're really trying to understand your customers and their needs. If you will start selling at this point, you will really have a hard time because you're not listening. Let's assume we have successfully passed the validation step and we have talked with our customers and we have listed the problems and they have told us that yes, they have these problems at their apartment, they have no time to vacuum, and they would really like to have an autonomous system that would vacuum for them, and that it would be so good that it vacuums during the time where they're not at home, and that it's giving them a little bit of the feeling of high tech, and for kids it's even more fun because there is a robot at home. So you will get these confirmations, and this is where you want to get to the stage where you are sure that these are the features that the product has to have that you want to build. And it's only here that we start talking about the building of the MVP. So here you have to be sure that this is the minimum feature set that you have figured out that the customer will pay for. So the MVP. Here what we're talking about is a quick list on what is connected to MVP and how we will go about building it. So the first thing is something that I tried to write down here for you, what I would try to avoid. There is no such thing as perfect solution at this time, and this is really hard, especially if you are having one of your first ideas and you're really afraid of breaking it. And so you really want to make it perfect and you're afraid that the customers will be angry or something. You really have to get over it. You really have to be okay with making a thing that just does what it needs to do. It has to just clean the floor and not stop in the middle of it, and be able to do one, for example, floor sweep in a half an hour, even if the battery is not so good, but clean at least big part of the apartment and then go charge and do it again, instead of just making a perfect battery solution, or if the app is not working as perfect, or some other problems. You don't want that. You want it to do these few core things quite good, but it doesn't have to be a perfect solution. Also, be very careful about the situation where somebody in the team says we're going to do it in a very unique way, and this is our unique way of solving it and developing it. This is probably going to be a disaster. And at this point, you don't add any new features. No new features. You just stay focused. Here is something that you have in your workbooks, and this at this point might help you of if you still have a feature set, let's say, which is a little bit uncertain for you where it's laying. You can always try to use this chart and try to really sort of reevaluate once again the last time if this is something that your customer is really willing to have and it has a high customer impact value. So this is something where you can double check it. You can also do this a little bit earlier when we have been validating, but this is also a nice way of charting out your features, or this minimum feature set that we keep talking about, and also representing it ourselves in a visual way. The first thing when you get to actually building an MVP, and this is where we say that we have things written down, and now we have to get to with our development team, and we really need to start building things. So before you actually start buying components or building something, you really need to go through something that I call the most cheapest stage of prototyping is wireframing. If you're doing a digital product which doesn't involve any new hardware or anything, wireframes is simply the best way to do anything. You can do this on paper. There is a lot of online tools. And you can do this if you even if you have been terrible at arts and drawing. I mean, this is designed for everybody. You can actually build up to a quite certain level of very nice system sort of picture by just drawing at your home, by printing out these leaflets of paper with different templates and just drawing and thinking. And then you can tap out your walls. And you can use this for something that is called a user journey. by simply saying that if on this screen I press that and, you know, drag an arrow or have a sticker going to showing to another piece of paper and just prototyping this way. You really need to build wireframes. This will give you a very detailed understanding of the product. First of all, you will yourself have to visualize how you think the customer will travel through it. And of course, this will help you sort of visualize the features, how you're going to implement them in a way. So this is for digital products or the digital part of the product. It of course doesn't help if you have to build hardware like the robot. In here, we have developed something in our company, a process which we call potential technical designs. So every time we reach a stage where we have this product brief, which is a little bit more technical in our state, where we have certain, let's say, already we have a certain list of technical specifications, like, you know, that it should be driving at that speed, you know, it should be able to lift that weight, or it should be able to do this, where we have a little bit more of technical parameters. Then we say, okay, we are going to do 3 or 4 potential technical designs, design sketches. And this is where we employ our engineers to really sort of contribute here and draw their way of how they would actually build a system around that. So in our robotic vacuum cleaner case, so somebody might come up with a system which is driving on a sort of how would you call this driving wheel system, for example, that a tractor uses, right? Another one might be coming up with a 6-wheel system. Another one might be doing something else. Then you will have, you know, then you can have different shapes, and the different designers or your engineers will have different understanding of different shapes, and they will have different arguments for that. So what we would do is we would typically build out these potential technical designs, because at this stage, it really gives you the functional view, because we have written down what kind of functions we want, but it gives you sort of a better feeling of how it might look in reality. And at that point, we try to have as many ideas as possible. And then at next stage, we try to see which kind of these PTDs in the next iteration, which kind of these PTDs we can merge, and maybe they can sort of have variations or borrow good ideas from one another. And typically, if you are not building a space rocket, you want to have at least 2 PDDs in the end, so that you can in parallel develop these, because by the next stage when you will be developing, this might give you very different insights. Because one part of the thing is that with a robotic system, it's very different when you have it modeled in your computer, but it's going to have so many different things that you have not thought about in the reality. How the system, you know, is really weighing or put the weight on the driving chassis, you know, why there is, you know, the vision camera really has lost the angle or is really not that good at this point, and many other things. So if you could prototype by doing a few sort of cheaper prototypes at that stage, it would really also give you a lot of advantage. Once you are in this prototyping stage that I already started talking about, that you have to remember that you are still building an MVP. You're not building a final product. At this stage, you really have to be focused on doing the product, not getting lost in all the details. And this is the hardest part. This is where everybody gets lost the first times. Instead of having your electronics guy who wants to do the perfect PCB, you have to go to the shop and buy a standard industry grade component where you can just plug in cables and write the code so that the system does it. You don't care if it weighs 300 grams more or 1 kilo more. You don't care. You want the function. You don't want the system to be perfect. At this stage, you have no place for innovation on different parts. You have to take the parts out of the world and put it into one MVP. Only and only in that case where you cannot find certain parts, you can do these custom parts, because you cannot do the product otherwise. Here at this stage, you also don't think about the price. You don't want to think about the price and start something that is called premature optimization, because the product has to work. Otherwise, you have no customers which are going to see it, and you cannot do demos or nothing. You have to build now, as I said, and optimize later, and you will have plenty of time if you succeed in this stage to do it later. And of course, plenty of more resources. What we also see in our experience is that typically you will need at least 3 iterations. What I mean by that is when you will build the first prototype, it's going to be very shitty. You are going to have missed so many things that you thought that you have thought about, but you actually have not, that you will actually need to throw 70% of it out and do the next iteration after you have tested the first one. The next iteration is going to be so much better, but still you're going to need to change a lot in the second iteration. And this is how you will typically get to the third one. As I'm fond of making a joke, if you can do a system in 3 iterations, you have really a fantastic and experienced team. And I have probably never seen a team which can do that in 2 iterations. Maybe there is such perfect teams in the world, or the systems are so not complex. But plan for this, that you will need to do these iterations and they will take time. Also, another important point in prototyping, you have to multiply your planned time of development by pi at 3.14, because there is so many things that you have not thought about that. And actually, this is a joke, but this is now a real life sort of tested variation that you will get. You will really need much more time than you have planned initially. You will be running late and you will be having too many problems. So multiply it by pi. In the beginning, this will be scary, but probably this is where you will end up in the end. Once you have started in the prototyping, something that you need to do next to it or together with your prototyping is something we have also learned that works very well for us, is something we call demos. If you have worked in software world and you have heard of something that is called agile development, this is the whole idea. The whole idea comes from the point that you have to work in sort of these short iterations that is called sprints. And the idea is that you should have sprints and you should have releases, which is something tangible. And you can really test something in a matter of weeks or a matter of months. So here you also need to think when you do these prototypes, even if you're building them and the team has certain implementation map, try to do weekly if it's possible. If not, and the system is more complex, do monthly demos. Even if the system is half working or if the system is breaking apart but the wheels are driving, do a monthly demo. This will give a good signal to the team, first of all, that you will see that the things are moving, you're showing results, and also this will give a better understanding for everybody in the team and a better transparency where you actually are. Because if somebody is sitting in the lab and the rest of the team is waiting for them to do something, this is going to be really hard, because the guy or the team that is doing it really needs motivation, and they really need probably also help from the other part of the team. Also, once you reach the point where you can show it to the closest customers, and this rolls us back to our initial list of interviews where you have built up your customer list, show them to the closest circle of customers as soon as you can do a demo and get a feedback there of this pre-MVP of something that is working. You will see a lot from their reactions, and probably you will also get some useful insights. As soon as you get to MVP, do the demo, and of course, once you get to the point where the MVP can be sort of sold or given to the first customers, you should really do that. And of course, the system will be fine if it breaks, if it stops at the customer apartment, if it's the first version of the vacuum cleaner, then you really have to be responsive and have a team which will come in, fix it. Or if they, for example, in our vacuum cleaner example, if the robots are breaking, then the team really needs to have 20 of these more. When the one breaks, they need to come in and swap it. Here, you also have to think about customer sort of satisfaction, and you don't want to be losing too many of these early customers. At this point, you also need to be thinking that you will be iterating a lot and looping back, and you need to be sure here that you're keeping this first list of initial features on your table, looping around it, and making sure that you are delivering this first MVP that you can demo and you can make sure that the customers can validate. Only then, when you reach this point, this is where you can start thinking about how you will go to the next stage of adding new features, thinking about better production costs, you know, or production on scale, or many other things that will come in with the next phase. And but that is the next phase. This is where your MVP story sort of works, and hopefully, if it's successful, you get to enter the next phase. If you're not successful, hopefully the company and the team is not dying, and then you can go back and iterate and do certain changes. So my short story is coming to a little bit first end, and I really hope that a lot of you will have questions now, and then we can, you know, jump back to certain parts of the lecture here.
Yeah, thank you, Justinas. That was a very great presentation with a lot of examples. And I can see a couple of questions in the chat already, so maybe we can start with those. And I would like to encourage everyone else to type their questions in the chat, really use this opportunity. And if it's difficult to write the question, you can actually ask to be unmuted, so just raise their hand. So the first question was from Ivan, and he's saying, hello, I'm not a technical person at all, but all my ideas are about applications. So what can you advise me to understand the technical side? Maybe there is a community in Vilnius where I could create connections with people interested in startups.
Yeah, so so Ivan, if you are still here, then you know, you can try to maybe add in a few things to your question. When you talk about applications, what kind of applications do you have in mind here? Ivan, are you here? Okay, so he's writing. Okay, so social network. So what sort of you're thinking about? You want to build as I understand, software that would be a social network. Is that correct? Okay. Then there is a lot of good technical people in Vilnius, and actually the best thing for you to start would probably be Facebook, and a lot of Facebook groups where you can meet both a lot of this is here you will be happy because there's a lot of web developers. I don't know from which country are you, but probably also have quite a community of web developers in your country, so that might help. But if you are here in Vilnius, then you could really start by Facebook groups, and I can actually send a few links to Julia afterwards, where you can just jump in and ask to different kinds of people. But I think for you to understand, yeah, one of Lucas is writing here, Lietuvos programuotojai, but there's also different web developer groups. But I think what would also help you if you're not a technical person, depending on what kind of knowledge you want to gain, but I think it would be good for you to get at least a little bit basic sort of course online to understand about certain web technologies. I mean, generally how it works. What is a social network in general? Because it's based on something that is called a graph. And if you have studied mathematics in university, probably you have had a different course on that. There is many things you need to sort of understand besides just the web programming technology. But that would be two advices. And of course, maybe getting somebody to help you out or understand these basics would also be helpful. But I will try to think about a few things and write to Julia where I could refer you, so that you could start a little bit and follow on that. Okay, not a problem. Then there is another question from what main differences would you point out in your explained phases if we are creating a service instead of product? Could you tell me if I cannot see the chat, what was the name here? Sorry.
It was Linus.
Yeah, Linus. So what kind of service, for example, you have in mind? Maybe you're also online here and you can talk. Okay, maybe, yeah.
So Ivan, if you would like, sorry, Linus, if you would like to talk, I can ask you to unmute.
Yeah, so now you should be able, Linus.
Oh, hello, good evening. Yeah, and thank you
Yeah.
for your, let's say, throughout explanation and presentation. Yeah, so the thing is that we are still struggling on the phase where we are not able yet to define the idea fully, but we're pointing into the education field of 3D printing in particular. So the thing is that we want to define the ideas uh, more accurately, and what stops us is uh, the whole process which you've defined for the products. And yeah, the question came out to my head because I was thinking about the vacuum cleaner and everything about the products themselves, but could you call a service a product? And
Yes.
when that's why my question popped out. And yeah, I'm still struggling to see the differences, and which phases could we, for example, mm, change to have a better plan for the service and not the product. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
easy to understand, but yeah.
Yeah. But I fully understand you, Linus, and I think the whole thing I explained should be simply the same process for the sort of service as well as a product. So you should be able to use everything I said to build up a service company instead of a product company. Because with a service company, you still have to define what kind of problems you're going you are going to solve the same problems for your customers, and you're going to solve it either for end customers, for example, housewives or housemen, or you're going to solve it for your grandparents, or you're going to solve it for certain types of companies. So you're going to work in business to business. So the service is going to be the same thing. Your product is going to be a service. You're going to be certain activities. And this is completely applicable, what I explained in trying to define what kind of services you're going to sell.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
in my head, there is absolutely no difference.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you for clarification.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
I think Julia will share my slides with you later, so feel free to use them actually as an exercise. I have been designing them so that you could actually use them to build something of your own, like this product brief, and use certain stages of this explanation to actually do something that is useful for you. So if you more or less follow what I have explained today, you should really be able to get quite some knowledge out of your initial brief, and validating it.
Yeah, we will share the slides indeed. And I see that Lucas would like to ask questions. So Lucas, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, so thank you for these slides. I just have a quick question for Justinas. I'm familiar with
Lucas.
Okay, we lost Lucas.
Yeah, try again, please.
Okay, is everything all right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, I have a question regarding the company in which you created. I just, is it machine learning regarding the programming aspect or not?
Which company are you talking about?
Factobotics. I just want to know because, for example, right now I'm studying in Vilnius Kolegija, and I'm also learning how to program Python. And I'm just interested in if, for example, in Factobotics, you use Python in any way possible.
Well, we do use Python in many ways possible. Actually, so we built quite parts of our software stack on Python. So we would need to go more deep into different sort of products we do. Then I could more explain you more in detail. But we do use a lot of Python.
Okay, and just like a quick question also, what are the possibilities for an internship?
Yeah, we definitely have possibilities for internship. As you can see now in the screen sharing, I'm leaving my email for everybody. So feel free to drop me a line if you have some questions, or You know, if you would like an internship, feel free to drop me a signal.
Okay, thank you for the answer.
Not a problem.
So Lucas is really using the opportunity.
Yeah,
and
this is good. This is exactly the thing you should do.
yeah, exactly. And someone named G is asking, hi Justinas, regarding MVP for retail, what are the main free features I should design? For example, the website for customers, list of products, checkout, pick point. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, depends on what type of retail. I would say I have to say I'm not the expert in retail, but I should design, for example, the website for customers. Yeah, so probably, I mean, you would look at a lot of examples, but if you're an online retail store, then probably, yes, probably as a starting point, you need a list of products. And if you want to sell them, then probably you need some sort of payment system, or as you call, checkout system, which is integrated with some payments. Probably I would say two things. You need a list of products and a possibility to check out. Pick point, that is a good question. That's logistics, what I would call. You need to figure out logistics. Probably these days you can sort out logistics without having any storage of your own, and probably you can do that if you are smart enough, because there is so many ways to do that. Maybe you can right away send it to your customers and then handle it in a smarter way. Of course, it happens probably until the moment you reach a certain scale. So here I would suggest to maybe try and find somebody who is an expert in online stores or e-commerce. There is actually a lot of courses right now on e-commerce. Since in 2020, what happened is, you know, everybody suddenly went under quarantine and all the internet exploded because suddenly a lot of services moved online, and people who had smaller online stores before suddenly started seeing huge growth. And then of course we can all feel the effects on logistics and on logistics and many other fields. So I think now you will be able to find quite some information online on retail. But as to answer finally your question and repeat myself, I would probably start from a finite list of products. So this is probably what you could use our example for today, is actually to talk to your initial customers, because probably you're going to sell something specific. If it's a skiing, you know, equipment, or if it's outdoor activities, or if it's certain type of beauty products, you really need to understand what kind of list of products you need. Maybe you can work out a small list of products which the customers really need and start from that subset, and then figure out how to do a fast integration with payment system, because you want to be collecting money for your orders. And then I would say the third point is logistics, because you need to be able to send that product. So the schema here would be very simple. How the customer selects a product. So that's one set of wireframe. Then you need to figure out, you know, how the whole process works of checking out and what kind of payment services is easiest and safest to integrate, so that you don't lose your customers' data, right? And then the third part would be how to integrate certain types of logistics. And maybe there is a logistics service which you can plug it into your website. I'm pretty sure somebody has been doing that as a service already, so that you can plug in some sort of logistics where you would, you know, send in an order and they would figure everything out for you. And then you can focus on your MVP, which is, in your case, I think you want to deliver certain types of products for certain types of customers, and then leaving out the remaining parts of the system, like the payments and the logistics, out of your scope, and let somebody professionally take care of that, where you take care of the products and the customer sort of side. That would be my comment on this one.
Yeah, and I see a raised hand by Mantas. So yeah. Mantas, you can unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really interesting to listen. So I have a couple of simple questions. So first question will be according new technologies and timing. So how do you figure out what's the perfect time to jump in the market with new technologies? And second question would be, is it better to be first with new tech, or is it better to be second and learn the mistakes that your competitor made and just be more efficient and go. So I would like to to hear your perspectives on these two questions.
What do you mean by technology? I mean, do you want to ask that you are going to be a technology provider? And by that, I mean, are you going to build a technology that you expect somebody else will use to build products? Or do you mean that the technology?
To make it clear a little bit, so I'm working with science a little bit, physics, nanotechnology, photonics. So I'm in this position that I see new emerging technologies, but they're coming like in 10 years, 15 years. So how do you figure out the timing for those technologies? What should I look around to see the science?
Yeah, this is a very good question. In terms of, so there's two parts of that. You have to decide on which side you work. And since you work in science, you know something, you know that all the fundamental activities is happening up to level 4 TRL, right? So this is where the fundamentals is happening. So this is where the sort of science part is. Once a sort of new application area that you could start calling a technology, it starts, you know, maturing, you can step into TRL 3 and then in TRL 4 where you can start having first prototypes. So I think what you are looking here is for everything that is in TRL 1 to 3, because this is where you will start seeing new technologies emerging. And once the technology reaches a technology readiness level, TRL is level 3, this is where you want to start seeing where you can use these for certain types of application. Because if the technology is not finalized, and if it's a early sort of, or if it's not working stably or whatever, then you will not be able to build a stable product on that. So this once again brings us to the example I showed today in the product brief, this dependency analysis. You really need to be sure if you're envisioning a certain product that you want to do. For example, you need I don't know, for example, you need to have AR glasses, yes, widely available in order you could sell or let everybody use your fantastic new augmented reality application, which you have successfully came up with in a way. But you're depending on the technology to be widely accessible. So then this is your sort of key sort of limitation for entering a market with your product, because you're depending on it. So in your case, when you are saying you're seeing a lot of new technologies emerging, if you're working in some of these, then you will really see which are the ones which might reach, you know, TRL 3 by 5 years. And then through this time, you can use your time to really think what kind of products I could build with this technology. In a way, what kind of applications I want to use it for, because from TRL 4, this is where is the end of the fundamental science, and is something that I call an application science, because this is where you need to find applications for these technologies. And that's why certain technologies stay in this stage, because there is so much problems with applying them, because they're either too expensive, they cannot be made, you know, widely accessible for different reasons, they have other limitations, and they never reach sort of this application area. But there is some technologies that do and suddenly explode into many different products. For example, semiconductors, right? So if you are able to follow as many of these fields, try to follow them and see which of these technologies that are in their springs, right, that are going to reach their summers. And once you have reached, you know, this summer, try to jump in the summer and apply these technologies. I'm sorry, I don't remember your second question. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry, it was hard to unmute. Yeah, second question was pretty similar to first one, but it's, yeah. So is it better to be first with new technology, or is it better to be second and avoid some mistakes that can make you a competitor? So that's the dilemma. Should I take more risk and be first, or should I wait and see what others do?
So I will answer your question in a funny way. So I have to have fun also, okay? So that's the deal. So my answer is like this. If I would be 25 again, so I would say that definitely I want to be the first one in the market. Now, when I'm a little bit over 35, I will say I'm going to be very happy if I'm the second one, because I will have a chance to learn so many ways from somebody who has been before me, and they probably have paid much more, and they probably have lost much more. So I always try to see if there is something there out in the market that looks a little bit similar, or is anything in that direction of the product that I want to build. And the moment I find something, I'm the happiest person in the world, because I know that I'm not alone and somebody else is thinking about this. So this always is a good signal. That's how I see it today.
And I see Martinas is reacting to this in the chat, saying, be first or be best.
Yeah. Okay. Do we have some more questions?
No raised hands. So please take the opportunity to ask probably the last or one of the last questions.
Yeah, we're still here, and you could still ask something if you want. So feel free. Okay, but otherwise I have left my email, as I said. So if somebody is a little bit more shy and then wants to drop a line afterwards, so feel free to do that, and we can follow up. And then Julia will share my slides with all of you so that you can use it for your daily activities. And then hopefully this was interesting and useful for everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Justinas, once again for taking time to share your experience with everyone. And I just want to inform the audience that if you missed any part of this workshop, or you would like to share it with somebody else, all recordings are available on our YouTube channel and on our website. So Justina's slides will be shared as well. And at the same time, next Wednesday, we will have our next workshop, which will focus on customer value proposition. So Justina stressed today that you need to talk to your potential customers, and you have to do it, as soon as possible. So our next speaker will talk about this a lot, and will explain you how to identify your customers and how to talk to the right people. So see you next week, and have a nice evening today. Goodbye.